Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first MAA in the Collector to Creator course. Today, we're going to talk about tools for thought. I ask you to submit your questions in the forums, and I'm going to go through them one by one. Okay, let's do this. So the first question is, what are your thoughts on bullet notes versus long form notes? I think it really depends what you're trying to achieve with your notes. For instance, if the goal is just to document your work, to be more of a librarian with your note-taking tool, I don't necessarily think you need the bullet points, and they can actually complicate things and make it a bit overwhelming for people who don't really see the need for filtering and connecting ideas at the bullet point level. That being said, if you're someone who's more of a gardener or even an architect, you may want to have a little bit more structure and to be able to be more granular and more modular with the content of your notes. If that's the case, then bullet points can be extremely helpful because it means that you'll be able to filter, to connect ideas at that more granular and modular level. So it's really about thinking, where do you want to do the work of connecting your ideas together? If you want to use your note-taking tool as more of a library where you can collect and retrieve content and information that you found when you were consuming content yourself, then it's completely fine to have more of a long form type of format where you connect ideas using another tool. If you want to do all of the collecting and the connecting together in the same tool, it may be helpful to invest in a tool that supports bullet points. Which tools have you found most effective at discovering information? I would say that there are a couple. The first one is Twitter, where I bookmark everything that I find interesting, whether it's blog posts, courses, templates, and just like fun stuff sometimes in general that I want to revisit later. The second one may feel a little bit cheesy. It's not really a tool, but this is generally one of my main sources of inspiration and discovery. And it's just people having interesting conversations. And I really make a point of capturing information that I gain from people during conversations. So I'm completely comfortable interrupting a chat with a friend and just telling them, hey, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to put what you just mentioned into my note taking app. And then when I go home, I can import it properly into my note taking system. But I'm really trying to capture as much valuable information as possible during conversations with people and to make sure that we don't just discuss something and then I forget about it. So this is an amazing discovery tool for me. Do you find notes written in outline survive the test of time when you revisit them later on? Oh, that's a great one. Yes, absolutely. I think outlines are actually a really helpful tool. I think you could spend a lot of time trying to write very detailed notes every time you have an idea, but my guess is that's not going to be sustainable. And you're going to end up having 3 or 4 very long notes in your note taking system that are going to be very easy to understand next time you read them, but they are not helpful because you don't have the volume of ideas necessary to start connecting ideas together. So outlines for me are very helpful in the sense that first, I can actually stick to it and enter it in my note-taking system because it's not taking me forever to do. And second, I can be as detailed as I want. I can add as many bullet points as I want. And I'm always trying to ask myself, what would future me need to understand the context of this note when she reads it again later? By having this in mind, I'm trying to make it as helpful and easy for me to understand the note in the future. So yeah, absolutely. I think outlines work really, really well. And whatever format you can use that makes it easier for you to be consistent and to keep on adding notes to your system is a good approach. Are there benefits of taking notes directly in graph-based apps versus taking them as free text and post-process them? To me, it really depends as to where you're at in your thinking process. So if it's very, very early and don't have a very vague idea of where I'm going with this train of thought, I may want to create a space for myself where I can experiment more, be more playful, and not feeling constrained. And to me, paper is very helpful for this, where I can just like draw and think very freely, connect ideas, and I don't have the software that gets between me and thinking about these ideas. Once my ideas are a little bit more formed, and it doesn't mean that they're final or perfect or anything, but once they start having a bit more substance, I really like taking whatever is on paper and importing it into my graph-based app. I use Roam personally, but there are so many different ones you could use, like Obsidian, etc. So I think both can be complementary and you can use them in combination. Free thinking on paper is incredibly powerful, but if you just leave it on paper, it becomes harder to connect with your previous ideas. So you can do it as a two-step process. For simpler ideas that don't require all of this free thinking, you can just put it directly into your app without having to brainstorm on paper first. So that's how I do it. Do you see value in journaling in a separate tool or in the same tool that you use for all other note taking? Well, I personally do everything in one app. The reason for that is because I'm really big on connecting ideas together. And some of these ideas can come from working, taking notes on a book, or from a meeting you're having with someone and capturing some of the information that came up or insights that came up in the conversation. But ideas can also come from self-reflection and introspection, which is what you get through journaling. So instead of having these two sources of ideas and insight and inspiration live in separate spaces where it's hard to connect them together, I really like having everything in the same place. So I can start seeing recurring patterns and I can have all of my inspiration in one place. That's the way I do it. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it or that it's the best way to do it, but that's how I personally do it. My approach is one of scattered paper collection, notebooks, and bookmark pages. How can I collate this into one streamlined system? I feel like this is connected to the previous question. I think the first step is to ask yourself, why do you have so many tools? What purpose do they serve? And try to be honest with yourself in terms of each tool. Are you using this tool just because of habit, or because you've heard other people were doing it, or because it's truly helpful for your creative workflow? Just by doing this, I guess there are a few tools that you may be able to eliminate. Once you've eliminated any tool that is not really serving a purpose, the second part would be to look at the tools that you're left with and try and figure out, is there any overlap between these tools? Are there any features that I'm currently using in that tool, but that are also available in the first tool? And try to see if you can combine them together. It's completely okay if by the end of the process, you're left with like two tools, that's fine. But just try to not have three, four, or five different ones, because the more complex the system, the harder it is to maintain. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to try and do one of these once a week. If there are any topics that you want me to cover in the next modules, just let me know in the forums. Thank you so much.